Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Private Eye Live. No expense has been spared. Look at this set. And we're delighted to see you here. This is where we do our review of the year. It's the Private Eye Annual, but brought from the page to the stage. And I know it's a difficult time. Private Eye has run its own State of the Nation poll. We asked people, is society divided? 50% said yes. The other 50% said no, but we're going to do it anyway. I'd like you first to welcome the incredible cast: Harry Enfield, Lewis MacLeod, Jan Ravens and John Sessions. Thank you. And to start, we're going to have a piece to cheer us up, reproduced from Private Eye's sister paper, The Penguin Times. It gives you the news in black and white. This opinion piece from The Penguin Times was written by a distinguished 93-year-old penguin, and it's called, Should We Step In and Help Humans?
We've all seen the footage. The desperate plight of millions of powerless Brits trapped deep in a harsh, unforgiving hole, facing certain doom with no idea how to get out. Should we, as penguins, let nature take its course and leave them to their fate? Is it our duty as intellectually and moral superior creatures to waddle in and help them escape in some way? Or should we let them jump over a cliff? In slow motion with stirring music and a commentary by myself. At the moment, their future looks cold and bleak. Should we save them from Brexit? Sadly, the answer has to be no. It's none of our business. We're penguins. We've got to let nature take its course.
Thank you to Penguin News. We have got to do the B word, but fortunately the Prime Minister has taken time out from her national tour, trying to convince you about her deal to appear here tonight. And we have Mrs. Theresa May.
In the words of the second greatest female Prime Minister of Britain, rejoice, rejoice, the deal is done. I have returned from Europe in triumph. And to quote a rather earlier male Prime Minister, I have in my hand a piece of paper. Or in my case, 585 pieces of paper. And quoting possibly our finest ever Prime Minister, though history may decide otherwise after this week, it is not the end of Brexit. It is not even the beginning of the end of Brexit, but it may be the end of the beginning of the beginning of the end. All that remains after my historic agreement with Mr. Juncker of the European Union is to negotiate an agreement with my own cabinet, MPs and Parliament. This, I assure you, will be a formality. But just in case it isn't, I have written a letter to every man, woman and child in Britain asking for their support. Let me read you this letter. Dear British person, help! Yours, Theresa May, Prime Minister.
Okay, it is time to cheer ourselves up now, and we're going to play Dumb Britain. And this is the column in Private Eye compiled by Marcus Berkman, which gives you real quiz answers to real quiz questions. All of these are things contestants actually said, from The Chase, Tipping Point, Mastermind, Tenable, Pointless, and many more. To be honest, most of them came from The Chase, so we're going to invite Bradley Walsh, who's also in Doctor Who now, to ask the questions. Bradley.
In which of Shakespeare's plays is a Roman leader stabbed in the back by friends?
Gladiator?
The Eddie Stobart truck Tammy is named after which country western singer?
Dolly Parton.
Samson lost his strength after what was cut off?
His arm.
The Yangtze River reaches the ocean near which major city?
Los Angeles.
Who was the only British king to abdicate in the 20th century?
Charles Dickens.
The inhabitants of which Scottish town or city are referred to as Dundonians?
Cardiff.
Who wrote the 1653 book, The Complete Angler?
J.R. Hartley.
In 1649, which English war resulted in the beheading of Charles I?
World War One.
Which famous military organisation was set up by King Alfred the Great in the 9th century?
The SAS.
What animal is a cross between a horse and a donkey?
A honky.
The fabled city of El Dorado was said to be made of which metal?
Tin.
Can you give me the name of a medalist from the Rio Olympics?
Mo Molam.
What day of the week rhymes exactly with Sunday?
Tuesday.
Crotchets, minims and quavers are examples of what?
Crisps.
We're going upmarket now, and it's very exciting to be on the set of a real David Hare play. This year, David received some rather unfair criticism about the exposition in his TV drama being a bit clunky. So Private Eye, to defend him, published a previously unseen play, The Tortoise and the David Hare. We're going to share it with you tonight, but we've cast it up a bit. So we've got Sir Ian McKellen as the Tortoise and Dame Maggie Smith as the Hare.
Enter lovable, sympathetic, mysterious Tortoise.
I'm a lovable, sympathetic, mysterious tortoise.
Enter moody, irascible, troubled Hare.
And I'm a moody, irascible, troubled Hare. Hello, Tortoise. What are you doing here in Tory Britain, you old tortoise, you?
Speaking as a tortoise, which I am, one thing I'm not going to do is challenge you to a race, because, as you remember, I'm a tortoise. And I have a backstory of being quite slow.
Well, this is Thatcher's Britain, and you, Tortoise, own your own home.
By which you mean the shell on my back, I suppose. Because I'm a tortoise, remember?
Let's get this race that I'm going to win over with, because in Cameron's posh boy Britain there are only winners and no time for losers. That's why race is a very big issue in today's society.
As is gender politics. I'm a lesbian, remember?
Yes, and I'm an illegal immigrant. What are you doing with that gun? Are you going to start this race?
No, I'm going to become a serial killer. Because I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, having served in Iraq in one of Tony Blair's illegal wars supporting the American military-industrial complex.
Oh, yes, I remember. I was going to tell you
At this point, the Hare went into a very long monologue, which put even herself to sleep, allowing the Tortoise to win the race.
Ladies and gentlemen, our play. Private Eye, of course, is known for better commentary than that, and mostly it's about the city and politics, and that area where the city and the politics clash with conflicts of interest. And we publish statements from various companies, and this is a financial statement from none other than the well-known financier and politician, Jacob Rees-Mogg, MP.
As a distinguished senior partner in the Somerset Capital Asset Management Scheme, known as SCAM for short, I would advise investors in our £2 billion fund that despite my total confidence in the successful outcome of Britain's exit from the European Union, we have decided to relocate a part of our operation to the Irish Republic. Even though I am personally sure that Brexit will undoubtedly bring Britain a period of unprecedented prosperity, we deem it prudent to hedge our bets by establishing a small office for scam above Mr. Seamus O'Flaherty's widely respected bar off Molly Bloom Street in Dublin. In the very unlikely event of the British economy totally collapsing as a result of the very sensible approach to Brexit so eloquently advocated by myself, it might turn out to be crucial to the survival of scam that we retain a foothold somewhere within the territories of the European Union. I believe this decision will further reinforce the attraction of our international portfolio, which includes our much acclaimed investment vehicle, Putin Scam, which enables us to profit from the fast expanding market in companies run by very wealthy friends of the Russian president. In conclusion, I have total confidence in Britain's ability to create a modern, go-ahead, optimistic future, forging new trading relationships with countries such as Mesopotamia, Persia, and Cathay.
Jacob is, of course, still alive, but we tend to cover the recently dead by means of our poet. He is a eulogist, a threnodist, E.J. Thrip. He writes obituary verse when someone has died, often the less celebrated, the more obscure figures of the age. So the first poetry corner is in memoriam Ingvar Kamprad, who was the founder of IKEA.
So farewell then, Ingvar Kamprad, creator of the furniture revolution. Although unfortunately you were pro-Nazi in your youth, you tried to make up for it by showing us all how to build a better world, or at least a better bathroom cabinet, or Billy bookcase. Keith says we are all trying to put together a better world, but sadly, we do not all have the right Allen key. And often, everything just falls apart.
E.J. Thrip. Just as we get a poet to cover the major obituaries, we get a romantic novelist to cover the big royal stories. This is Sylvie Cornet, one of the great writers of the age. No. You thought I was going to say Geoffrey Archer. This is Sylvie Cornet, and this is her describing what happened at the christening of the new royal baby, Prince Louis. It's about Prince Charles. It's called Heir of Sorrows. Charles is attending a party to celebrate the christening of his newest grandchild.
This is marvellous.
Enthused the heir to the throne.
I'm here surrounded by all my old friends.
Charles was alone in the greenhouse at Highgrove. In the midst of his beloved collection of pot plants.
I'm sorry about this, chaps, but I'm going to have to leave you and go to this baptism do thingy.
As if on cue, Camilla arrived to disturb his convivial conversation.
Look, just stop skulking around in here, Chazza, and come back to the party.
Inside the Michael Ballroom, the party organised by the younger royals was in full swing. Charles could hear the heavy pounding of top grime artist Stormzy Daniels vibrating through the Louis de Bernier chandeliers. Pop went the champagne cork as Prince William's friend Guy Silly opened yet another bottle of champagne.
Oh, Fizzington! Time to wet the baby's head again!
Shouted Silly as he filled the glasses of the assembled young people with vintage Bullinger Grand Cru.
Who are they all?
Charles wondered.
Was that Araminta cut some jetsam flotsam. And who was she talking to? Was it definitely an old Etonian, I think? Possibly Darius Chumley Food Banks. Or maybe Pongo Moneybags?
Charles worried that he could no longer remember anyone's name. There were Kate's family, the Middle-Classingtons, busily advertising their new range of christening party balloons and baptize me quick hats.
That's Mrs. and her husband, Mr. and Kate's sister, Popper, wasn't it? And Beardy, the boy, Thingy Middle-Classington.
There, however, was dear old Camilla, holding the new royal infant. What was the baby's name again?
Louis Theroux Arthur Daily Telegraph. No, I don't think it could be there.
Come on, cheer up, Chazza. You look like the ghost at the feast.
Chided his consort royale, the Duchess of Marlborough Light, as she attempted to give the newly christened baby Louis a quick vape.
Yeah, this'll keep him quiet. It's Dutchy original organic mint and cannabis flavour.
Kate smiled weakly and hurriedly took the baby away and gave him to her mother. Charles moved towards the buffet with its range of stylishly named font food from the Middle-Classington christening collection, and he overheard a conversation drifting over from Prince Harry and Princess Meghan.
I think he's behaving very well, all things considered.
Soothed the unmistakable, empathetic Californian voice of the newlywed Duchess Markle of Sparkle.
Defo no tantrums, no crying, no throwing his toys out of the pram.
Agreed Prince Harry.
Yes, indeedy duty. I think your father's on top form.
Oh yeah, you're totes right, Megster. Peter is playing a blinder.
The room seemed to spin around Charles's weary head. What was worse, being ignored or patronised? Either way, it really was. What was the word for it?
Appalling.
That's the one. Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvie Cornet. It's not all domestic obsession. We do take an interest in foreign affairs. We even run a TripAdvisor service in Private Eye, and this is the TripAdvisor. It's a review of the cathedral city of Salisbury by Russian tourists Alexander and Ruslan.
As ordinary citizens with no connection whatsoever to the Secret Service, we had a lovely time in this quaint English rural town.
We went to a number of places of interest, including the famous cathedral and Mr. Skripal's front door.
We were so exhausted after 1 hour's sightseeing that we headed back to our lovely hotel in Bow, East London.
The snowy weather was also very difficult for us Russians because we so rarely see snow in Russia. But we loved Salisbury so much that we went back the next day and had a lot of fun trying to avoid all the CCTV cameras.
We saw all the sights, but found we still had a bit of time to kill.
We had a great time, and definitely won't be going there again, or indeed anywhere outside Russia.
Unfortunately, we lost our duty-free perfume somewhere in the area. If found, please don't return.
Thank you to TripAdvisor. Private Eye tries to cover culture, the BBC, history, documentaries, and as a result of that, we covered Mary Beard's career. Now, she's presented most programmes this year, you will have noticed, but this one was a classic and classical. It tried to bring the classical world alive to a popular audience. This is Mary Beard, Julius Caesar Revealed. Mary Beard strides into the hospital delivery room dressed in scrubs and stands next to a woman giving birth.
What a lot of mums like Sally here forget when they're having a C-section is that the C is actually short for caesarean.
Woman screams in agony.
Julius Caesar is still part of our everyday language.
Cut to man in street with Rottweiler.
That's a boy Caesar.
Cut to Mary pushing open the door of the Rover's return.
And who can forget that mainstay of one of our best-loved soaps, Bet Lynch?
Cut to photo of Bet Lynch.
Is played, of course, by the fabulous Julie Goodyear, who may not realise that her name derives from the most famous and most notorious ancient Roman of them all, Julius Caesar, as famous in his day as Beyoncé.
Cut to footage of Beyoncé.
Or Posh and Bex.
Cut to footage of David and Victoria Beckham.
Are in ours.
Cut to Mary in Rome eating a Caesar salad.
So how did a rich but frankly not A-list aristocrat get so powerful that the only solution was, spoiler alert, to stab him to death?
Cut to photo of Michael Gove behind Boris Johnson.
The young Julius started off by playing the game according to the rules.
Cut to Mary playing table football in an Italian bar.
But before long, he was tearing up the rule book.
Mary tears up a rule book.
And when he left Italy for Gaul, he got to lay the foundations.
Cut to Mary in a high-vis jacket on a building site.
On which all his later successes would be built. And above all, he knew how to set the news agenda. Just like Twitter and social media today, yet Julius Caesar didn't even have his own mobile. But he could have taught Donald Trump.
Cut to picture of Donald Trump.
And Kim Kardashian.
Cut to picture of Kim Kardashian.
And 2016 X Factor winner Matt Terry.
Cut to picture of Matt Terry.
Everything there is to know about sound bites. Take this, for instance. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered.
Cut to Mary playing conkers.
So that's how Julius Caesar got to the top of the political ladder.
Cut to Mary on a step ladder.
And made him the most famous and notorious ancient Roman of them all.
Mary Beard. Now time to change things around a bit and introduce Private Eye's great parodist, Craig Brown, who writes a diary for us in the back in every issue. There's quite a lot of them in the annual, which I hope you'll enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, can you welcome Craig Brown onto the stage? Woo-hoo! And Craig's first diary, he is channeling Kenneth Rose, the very well-known Sunday Telegraph diarist. Now, his diaries have just been published. He was a great fan of the royal family. He chronicled high society. His critics said he was a social climbing snob. But no, Craig is here to prove otherwise.
8th of October 1970. Over dinner at Pratt's, Bobbity Bristol tells the most amusing story. Bubbles Birmingham and I are all ears. Apparently, Hector Chumley once asked Walter Pettigrew to luncheon at Boodle's, little realising that Pettigrew much preferred Pratt's, having once been served there with a plate of slightly lukewarm tomato soup. He's, of course, well known for liking his soup piping hot. 10th of October, 1970. I had just finished telling Tommy Lascelles the story of Pettigrew and Chumley at Boodle's when Tommy pipes up that Pettigrew's dislike of lukewarm soup is greatly exaggerated. Say what you like, but I once saw Pettigrew spoon an entire plate of gazpacho into his mouth without so much as a backward glance, he says, a trifle vehemently. Yet people still go on and on and on about Pettigrew disliking his soup lukewarm. Needless to say, I hesitate to point out that gazpacho is generally served cold rather than lukewarm. Towards the end of our meal, Tommy tells me a most amusing story involving the Earl of Crookenden and a shaving brush. 11th of October 1970. Dine at the Beefsteak. sit between Sir Percy Nutter and Lord Curtsy Cutesy of that ilk. They find it hard to conceal their amusement when I tell them, strictly entre nous, that Tommy Lascelles is labouring under the misapprehension that gazpacho is served lukewarm. 12th of October 1970. To the Travellers' Club. General Sir William Allday Carvery can't wait to tell me that Tommy Lascelles thinks that gazpacho is a soup served hot. I hesitate to tell him the true story, i.e. that Tommy believes gazpacho is served lukewarm. It shows how often these stories get exaggerated. As an historian, one must always be on the lookout for these anomalies. 17th of July, 1980. Luncheon at Clarence House. Her Majesty the Queen Mother has never been more brilliant. What is the secret of this extraordinary woman? She's always beautifully dressed and in the highest of spirits, and she's able to lay on magnificent repasts for 12 or more guests with astonishing regularity, and all with a staff of barely 65. She is a woman of supreme intelligence. Did I ever tell you of my encounter with Pettigrew and the gazpacho, I say? Yes, you did, Kenneth, she replies. She has the most remarkable recall for people and places. At one juncture, I happened to mention the East End of London. With no prompting whatsoever, she informs us that it is a few miles in that direction, pointing to Trafalgar Square and beyond. It's the most extraordinary feat of memory. I don't know how you do it, ma'am, I say. She says she's full of admiration for the warm-hearted men and women of East Cockney. You know, they simply adore one. In return, I make a point of visiting them every 40 years or so. I would go more often, but one doesn't want to overdo it, does one? Or they get so spoilt. An object lesson in generosity and selflessness. I make a note in my diary to tell Bobbity and Bubbles over breakfast at Boodle's.
Craig Brown! We go from the very English to the very American, and of course, it's Trump. We couldn't avoid him for any longer, as so many people say in litigation. This is Trump's performance when the powerful tropical storm Hurricane Florence swept across the eastern seaboard, leaving a trail of devastation and destruction in its wake. The president took personal control and tweeted from his bedroom at 3 a.m.
I have never met Hurricane Florence. I never slept with her. Unless she's that friend of Stormy Daniels.
Mr. Trump took some time to consider his position and at 3:01 qualified his earlier tweet.
Oh, hang on, it's all coming back to me. Hurricane Florence signed a non-disclosure agreement and has nothing further to say on the matter. I got my lawyer to deal with it all, but I did not pay her money.
At 3:02 he continued.
Okay, I did pay her money, but it wasn't from campaign funds, it was from my own personal bank account.
3:03.
All right, it was from campaign funds. But in no way was it a huge donation from the Russians. Call off this witch hunt now.
3:05.
Okay, it may have been Russian money, but I didn't know about it, which makes it fake news. Hashtag failing New York Times.
At 3:06, the president exploded back onto Twitter.
Hey, why have the cartoons been taken off to show me some boring windstorm? Who cares? Come on. Hashtag failing Cartoon Network.
3:10.
Looney Tunes, deeply disturbing. Speedy Gonzalez, so-called fastest mouse in Mexico. I demand extradition of Gonzalez of charges on rape, murder, and drug peddling. Lock him up, build that wall. That's enough. Get him out of here. Great job.
Lewis MacLeod. We do have our own scandals in Britain and indeed in Scotland. And Alex Salmond came into some trouble. And again, we decided the best response was to get a poet to deal with him. This is the very famous Scottish poet, William Rees McGonagall, the purveyor of great verse for the last 200 years. And this is lines written on the investigation of the former First Minister of Scotland for inappropriate behaviour.
'Twas in the year 2018 that Alex Salmond was questioned as to where his horns had been and whether he had been somewhat remiss in the particular colleagues he had chosen to kiss. The former First Minister admitted he'd been flirty, though strenuously denied he'd done anything dirty. Indeed, he said he had no reason for guilt as to what went on or not beneath his kilt. But the leader of his party, cool Nicola Sturgeon, cut poor Alex off like a limb by a surgeon. So Alex said, "I'll fight you all in court for saying I've done things I didn't ought, and to underline the unfairness of the case against me, I hereby resign my lifelong membership of the SNP." And in a fit of righteous but canny entrepreneurial rage, he set up an online legal defense crowdfunding page. But what would be the outcome of the investigation be? Would he be disgraced, or would he walk free? Of only one thing can we be entirely sure. We'll see yon Alex one day on that shiny Strictly Come Dancing dance floor.
I know at this point you'll be thinking, typical Tory bias, where is Corbyn? It's what people ask all the time, usually in the Labour Party. Anyway, he appears regularly in Private Eye. He writes a column for us, and he's had a great year. And he has. He said to John McDonnell, "I want to turn Britain into a very different country, Venezuela." This is Corbyn writing over a really serious issue in the Labour Party.
Hello. Well, once again, I've been forced to intervene over a sinister strain of prejudice that infects our Labour Party like a cancer. The prejudice against me, which I like to call anti-Jeremism, is held by a small number of well-meaning but misguided Labour Party members who have this knee-jerk reaction to the state of Jezreel. It's anti-Jeremism and criticism of orthodox Jezers that threatens the whole Labour Party, and it must cease. If you don't believe me, listen to the views of someone entirely independent, my old friend Diane Abbott.
Jeremy. People tend to forget that our people, the tribe of Jezer, spent many years in the wilderness. Just because we refused to accept that Tony Blair was the Son of God. We were persecuted by the Centrites, wandering from festival to festival, where we were subjected to all manner of indignities, including Billy Bragg. Eventually, we found a home on the Mill Bank, a small place to call our very own, and we immediately set about peacefully spreading ourselves around and removing everyone who didn't share our faith, as is the prerogative of any persecuted people.
Thanks, Diane. So let's get the guidelines absolutely straight. Anti-Jeremism is the stereotyping of Jez as an ignorant, blinkered old man who can't really see everything and he ever does is wrong. 2, the sentiment is usually expressed by annoying Jewish people and also annoying non-Jewish people. 3, goodbye. I'm a busy party leader. Got to organise Momentum's annual works outing to Stratford. It's the Merchant of Venice again. But you can never get tired of the classics.
Jeremy Corbyn. And obviously, in the interest of balance, we move straight on to Boris. A terrific year for Boris. We learnt who the mystery blonde was that he was in love with. It's himself. And we learnt that he sent 2 letters to his wife when the news of his infidelity came out. One arguing he should remain, one that he should leave. He did, in fact, leave. Now, this is about the press, and this is about the Daily Telegraph, which changed its name earlier this year to the Daily Borisgraph. It runs a piece by Boris every Monday, which it then puts on the front page. This is one of many of his columns under the headline, "Brexit will be car crash," says Brexiteer who was driving car.
With her foot full on the throttle, Prime Minister Theresa May is backing into a corner. Where she's going to hit the buffers without leaving time to jump into the lifeboats and sail over the cliff. Not since 1066 has this country faced a pile-up of metaphors as serious as that created by the so-called Chequers Plan, a proposal so calamitous that I voted for it before David Davis resigned, and I thought I'd better resign as well in case I missed the boat. Where was I? Oh yes, 1066, Magna Carta. Have we forgotten? Have we forgotten that momentous moment in our island story when the Duke of Wellington confronted William the Conqueror and said, "No"? Or, to use a sporting metaphor for the man on the Clapham omnishambles, we are 5-0 down in extra time. With the ball turning on a sticky wicket and the referee asking for a third umpire as we go into the championship tie break. What can we do? Simply adopt my 6-point plan for clearing up the mess that I didn't anyway create. 1, reject Mrs. May's terrible plan. 2, come up with a brilliant plan of my own which will work really well. 3, adopt the Super Canada Brexalistic Expiala Plus Plus. 4, even though the sound of it is simply quite atrocious. 5, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. 6, Super Canada Brexalistic Expiala Plus Plus. Gotta go, I think my pants are on fire.
Boris
Nailed it.
Time for another eulogy by E.J. Thrip. This is In Memoriam Ken Dodd, entertainer.
So, farewell then, Ken Dodd. They say you used to go on forever, but sadly, that wasn't true. They also said only 2 things in life are certain: death and taxes. Unfortunately, you only avoided one. And now it's knotty ashes to ashes.
We also cover sport in Private Eye, particularly in our column Commentator Balls, which are all sent in by readers, and they are real examples of commentators trying to fill in time whilst they're watching sport. These are all genuine. We start, of course, with football. Paul Merson on Sky Sports.
He's moving a bit sheepishly at the moment.
Perry Groves on TalkSport 2.
They had a couple of little soirees into the opposition box.
Sports presenter, BBC Radio Lancashire.
We can have this debate till we're blue in the teeth.
Ian Dark, BT Sport.
With Everton 2-0 down, Sam Allardyce will throw caution to the window.
Andy Hinchcliffe, Sky Sports.
The lone striker role was always going to be a 2-man job.
Jermaine Jenas, BBC One.
I wouldn't say it was a confidence issue, but he just started to lack a belief in himself.
Sports presenter, BBC News.
Are
Argentinian fans chanting from dusk till dawn and probably overnight as well.
Stephen Warnock, Radio 5.
Liverpool's early goal has given them fresh impotence.
It's not just football, though. Cricket's just as bad. Conor McNamara on Radio 5 Live.
Vaughan saw a chance there to put his name in the headlamps.
Sports reporter, Radio 5 Live.
Do you think there'll be a tear in his eye when the finger goes up?
Geoffrey Boycott, Radio 5 Live.
His shoes were all silver and gold like a Belisha beacon.
Stuart Broad, Sky Sports.
Cricket is a game without boundaries.
Ed Smith, Radio 4.
Roots retired ill again with gastroenteritis. Problems at both ends for England now.
Quick look at rugby. Eddie Jones, Radio 5 Live.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you don't get many of those.
Paul Grayson, Radio 5 Live.
It doesn't matter how big your tackle is, you've got to be able to roll away.
Austin Healy, BT Sport.
He's made out of mercury, that player. Rock solid.
And the last word to Claire Balding, who's presented nearly all sports this year. This was her view on the Winter Olympics.
It was, I think, wonderful from beginning to start.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commentators. These are strange times, and the press provides opinion pieces. And this year, there were an awful lot of pieces written along these lines in papers that you wouldn't quite have expected to them. Anyway, Private Eye were happy to reproduce them. It was the headline, "Our timid leaders can learn from strong men."
It's all very well to criticise strong leaders, but what people fail to understand is, like them or not, decisive leaders get things done. Trump, Putin, Erdogan and Duterte might be a little controversial, but sensitive liberals must understand that these strong men are the future, and surely they are better than leaders who just talk, make promises and don't deliver. This is why the decision by the BBC not to include the Daleks in the next season of Doctor Who is wrong. The Daleks have a clear, easy to understand manifesto.
Exterminate!
Particularly with regard to people who aren't like them and try and oppose them.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
And they carry out their campaign pledges to the letter, and you have to respect them for that. They get things done as long as that thing is...
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
Unpalatable as Daleks may seem to liberal elites, they are surely preferable to Doctor Who, with her mushy ideas of nice outcomes that are good for people. Good for whom? I, for one, would welcome Britain being subjugated by a strong man, or rather a homicidal half-man, half-robot, just as long as he wasn't a pathetic, weedy woman like Angela Merkel, Theresa May, or Barack Obama.
I will obey! I will obey! I will obey!
Another obituary. In memoriam, Fats Domino.
So, farewell then, Fats Domino, king of boogie-woogie, godfather of rock and roll. But would you be called Fats today? Or would we have to call you differently sized Domino? Or alternatively weighted Domino? Or obesity issues Domino? No, it's not quite the same. All together now, ain't that a shame?
charities were much in the news this year, and their problems were leapt on by the right-wing papers. Again, Private Eye tended to reproduce their material. This was a very strident piece called Don't Give Them a Penny.
Oxfam, Oxsham more like. I don't want to say I told you so, but I did. Once again, I've been proved right. Foreign aid never did anyone any good. Fact. Little old ladies in charity shops are wasting their time and, worse than that, are supporting international pedo gangs who roam the world with impunity, spending the money raised from the moth-eaten cardigan you gave them on champagne, oysters and rent boys. Double fact. It all goes to prove what I've always said. Charity begins at home, but it's better if it doesn't begin at all. So, next time you hear news of a tragic famine, earthquake or tsunami in some shithole of a country and the miserable bearded aid workers shamelessly put out the begging bowl, do yourself and the rest of the world a favour. Go and punch a chugger in the face. Burn down your local Oxfam shop. Steal all the money from the collecting tin in the pub. Sue Comic Relief for all your money back, even if you didn't give them any. There's only one way to solve the world's problems, and that's to ignore them. Oxfact. P.S. Can I have my cheque, please? I'm dying of thirst here.
Ladies and gentlemen. Time for the return of Craig Brown. Craig coming back for a final set of parodies. This, is he there? Yes, Craig Brown! Hey. We couldn't let the birth of Louis go uncelebrated again. And this is a festschrift of some of the UK's greatest writers and thinkers commenting on the birth of baby Louis. Craig.
This is Piers Morgan. This morning I texted Louis to wish him the very best of British. He hasn't replied yet, but frankly I've noticed that all my best royal buddies are on the slow side when it comes to texting. I suppose they have to wait for a flunky to do it for them. Louis is a smashing little guy, and in the years to come I look forward to introducing him to my good friends Michael Caine, Amanda Holden, Lord Sugar, Simon Cowell, Donald Trump and Rachel Stevens from S Club 7. This is the late V.S. Naipaul, who was increasingly sour. The new baby is a deep disappointment. Even after a week, he has yet to do anything worthy of consideration. You can see bitterness etched in his features. He has said nothing of interest. He cries and gurgles, gurgles and cries. These are clear signs of a peevish, unpleasant nature. This is the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel. The old saying has it that Monday's child is fair of face. Wrong. The first time I set eyes on Louis coming out of that hospital with that know-it-all look about him, as if he owned the place, I thought to myself, well, this Monday's child is fat of face. Time to shed a few pounds, chubby chops. With all that money, you'd have thought Wills and Kate could have afforded a junior indoor rowing machine for him. I work out just a couple of hours a day and I'm reliably told I have the body of a woman of 25. So face the facts, fat boy Louis. If you want me to be, in the iconic words of Billy Joel, your uptown girl, then you best start cutting those calories, and fast. This is Richard Dawkins tweeting. Richard Dawkins at Richard Dawkins. Just because the royal baby will be subjected by his grossly ill-informed parents to a grotesque christening does not mean that he will be more moral than the rest of us. Quite the opposite. Statistics show that people who define themselves as religious are more likely to be rapists, murderers and pickpockets. Fact. This is Lord Archer. With a few carefully chosen words in the right ears, I managed to get the Duchess of Cambridge into the VIP Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital. Breathe not a word to anyone, but the Lindo wing is actually named after me, Lord Geoffrey Lindo Archer. Little known fact, but it's my middle name. It's not something I boast about, but I dug deep in my pockets to have it built and equipped, and I secretly pay all the salaries of the splendid doctors and nurses, bless them. Before I became a Booker-winning author, I was actually a fully qualified doctor, and I like to keep my hand in. I'm deeply proud to have been there to deliver Prince Louis last Monday. I only wish I could have stayed longer, but I'd promised to undertake a hush-hush assignment to rescue kidnapped twins from Mozambique in darkest South America. Mission accomplished. Sarah Ferguson at Sarah the Duchess. Thank you, gorgeous little Prince Puppy Dog, for empowering us to believe that every day a dream is possible, and for spreading hope, love, and literally lots of other great things around this beautiful, beautiful world of ours. You are my hero, and I'm so proud of your wisdom and inner strength. I just know you're going to love my new children's books, Ballerina Rosie Goes Sailing and Budgie the Little Helicopter Goes Shopping. They're both now available from my bestest friends at amazon.co.uk. This is Guardian columnist Owen Jones. It's a hard-won fact that the establishment is hand in glove with the media to systematically employ royal births to distract our hard-won attention from the Windrush victims, transmitting falsehoods about a succession of royal babies to incite hatred against minorities is just the latest in a long line of closely calibrated campaigns by the Tories and their allies to undermine the foundations of our hard-won democracy. And finally, we have that great lyricist, Sir Tim Riis. And for this, I thought we'd have a little, it's just going to be a lyric by him, and I'd like you all to chorus at the end. We might have one little practice. When I raise my hand, you have to shout joyously, "Hurrah for Prince Louis." We'll have one practice.
Hurrah for Prince Louis!
Very good. Okay, this is the brilliant lyric of Sir Tim Riis. Welcome, young sir, who sets all our hearts astir, more precious than myrrh, and warmer than fur. Goodly biddings, young prince, tastier than after-dinner mince. So we won't say, "Oh, phooey," no, we'll sing,
Hurrah for Prince Louis!
Congratulations.
Just time for a few more items. Private Eye doesn't get a huge amount of advertising, you may have noticed. Quite a lot of stuff involving stair lifts, cruises and suits by Mr. Raja. Extremely good, I'm wearing one tonight. But we do occasionally run public service adverts, including those for the BBC. This appeared a short time ago. It's a very special job, and they were advertising for it.
The BBC is seeking to appoint a liaison director to oversee BBC Sir Cliff Richard relations. The post will suit either a devil woman or a bachelor boy, and he or she will develop a comprehensive strategy to find out why Sir Cliff Richard and the BBC don't talk anymore. On no account will that strategy involve wiring Sir Cliff for sound. Ideally, the post's remit will include taking the blame for losing the corporation a vast stack of money, while those really responsible go on an extended summer holiday, with no more working for a week or two. If the applicant is successful, he or she will get congratulations and celebrations from a grateful corporation. Salary, £100,000 plus Christmas bonus of mistletoe and wine.
Time for a final quick poetry corner. This is in memoriam Rodney Bewes, David Cassidy, AC/DC's Malcolm Young, and the serial killer Charles Manson.
So, farewell then, quite a lot of people. Whatever happened to the likely lads? Well, in your case, Rodney, now we know. Could it be forever? Sorry, David, no. Malcolm, let's hope you're not on the highway to hell. But we know who definitely is. Don't we, Charles?
DJ Thrip. Just time to find out what's happened to another of our great leaders, Tony Blair. A diary.
Thursday. The truth is, these days I'm more in demand than ever. I'm quite literally rushed off my feet. I grab breakfast at home and quickly scan Twitter for reaction to my major keynote speech on the need for global interdependence. Brilliant. It's been retweeted by independent assessors at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And BBC Wales Today have also retweeted it, which is great. I put an urgent call through to my old buddy, President Barack Obama. Yo, Barack, Tony here. How's it going? Just keen to touch base over global interdependence. The response was immediate.
This is the office of President Barack Obama. Please leave your name and the purpose of your call, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Friday. Find I have a few hours between a solo working breakfast and perhaps grabbing a bite to eat that evening. So I go out to have a chat with my police protection guys. I like to exchange friendly banter with them. Looks like it's going to be a nice sunny day, I said this morning. That means it's time to get our umbrellas out, said one to the other. I guess they must have misheard me. Barack has not called back. I hope I didn't miss his call while I was watching Countdown.
Tony Blair. I have to make a very serious statement before we close. I know we're running out of time. This is an editorial about Mr. Max Mosley. In the light of Mr. Mosley's recent attempts to use the Data Protection Act to delete references to his past from the official record, I'd like to make it clear that Private Eye, as a responsible newspaper, will no longer be referring to sadomasochistic orgies involving German-speaking prostitutes spanking Mr. Mosley's bottom on the grounds that this indeed may be painful for him. We certainly won't be suggesting that suffering pain seems to be what Mr. Mosley likes. Nor would we be suggesting that it is hypocritical of Herr Mosley to gag the press when he's the one who's gagging for it. We realise this is a very serious issue that needs to be treated sensibly. It's a deeply important debate about the freedom of the press, and we hope that Mr. Mosley does not end up as a sore loser. Even though that's what he really likes. So we'd like to assure Mr. Mosley that we consider this is too important to question for childish sniggering on behalf of Private Eye and suggesting that Mr. Mosley change his name to Max Spanky McSpankface. Quick time for another public service announcement. This is auditions here at the theatre. And a very important announcement from Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart.
The Royal National Theatre of Neasden is currently holding auditions for the part of Hamlet. Applicants need to be Danish, of royal blood, and suicidal. Other actors, please do not bother to apply, as you are no longer eligible for this role. The Royal National Theatre of Neasden is an equal opportunities employer, except we aren't.
Talking of acting and of great films, we have to end with Sir Herbert Gusset. Sir Herbert Gusset is still writing letters to the Daily Telegraph from deepest Somerset, and this letter was the subject of a film about Winston Churchill, which I hope you all saw. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Herbert Gusset.
Sir, as lifelong admirers of the late Sir Winston Churchill, undoubtedly the greatest British Prime Minister of this or any other age, my wife and I recently drove into Market Barkworth to attend a cinematic performance of the new film Darkest Hour. Imagine our horror on discovering that this supposed account of the momentous events of 1940, which Lady Letitia and I remember as if it was yesterday, was nothing but a complete travesty of the historical facts. Not 5 minutes into this film, we were shown footage of what purported to be a typical London street of the time, in which one could clearly see, driving along in the background, a 1953 Ford Consul. At least the film was redeemed by the one inspiring scene where Churchill is shown as having doubts as to whether Britain should continue to fight the Nazis or sue for peace. Churchill enters the carriage of an underground train where he seeks the views of a typical cross-section of ordinary 1940 Britons. A chimney sweep called Bert, a children's nanny who gives her name as Miss Poppins, a cloth-capped dustman, Mr. Doolittle, and his charming daughter, Eliza, who works as a flower girl, plus several representatives of Britain's then worldwide empire, including a turbaned Sikh, a stern-looking imam, and a West Indian expert on British and Roman history, all of whom are shown conducting an animated discussion on Britain's military options with gallant members of London's wartime LGBTQ community. Quite rightly, they all end up shouting, "Go for it, Winnie. Kick that Hitler in the ghoulies. The nation is right behind you," as they all produce Union Jacks from their pockets to sing a rousing chorus of Rule Britannia. The Prime Minister bursts into tears and then strides off to the House of Commons to deliver the speech which undoubtedly won the war.
Herbert Gusset.
And that's it.
That's it.
Another year gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for your patience. And thank you very much for coming. There is a book signing afterwards. We'll be selling copies of the annual, and the writers will all be there to sign the books. Could I ask you, therefore, in this particular order, to show your appreciation for Jan Ravens? Mr. Lewis MacLeod.
Woohoo!
Mr. Craig Brown.
Yay!
Mr. Harry Enfield. And Mr. John Sessions. Thank you all very much from Private Eye, and thank you for sticking with us again. Good night.
Good night.